Hello everyone, Rick here with another one of those starships brought from the Battle of Wolf 359 and probably one of the most obscure vessels I have seen yet, the Springfield Class. And, well, I apologise in advance if this is your favourite ship. The starship was created by Ed Miyazaki and Michael Okuda, and one of many hodgepodge creations using both Galaxy-class parts and the secret ingredient, marker pens, for the nacelles. As these materials were also present in the creation of the Cheyenne class, it actually made the ship fit in pretty well alongside the other designs. It was mentioned that the vessel it was actually going to be depicting was originally the USS Chekhov, but was changed to Tolstoy last minute to avoid being overly fan-servicey. Originally, the ship may have been termed the Rigel class, but this was never finalised. As with the New Orleans' pods, the large attachment on the back was there to create a distinct silhouette to avoid it looking too similar to the Cheyenne or Galaxy. A fact that I had no clue about was that the mission pod was actually from a toy called a Treadmaster, thanks to ex-astris-scientia for uncovering that tidbit. In universe, the Springfield was one of the many ships that emerged from the research and development on the Galaxy-class project that also created others like the Niagara, New Orleans and Cheyenne. However, it also drew from the Cheyenne class heavily, as the nacelles would suggest. The primary shipyard was the Antosian Equatorial Belt at Antos, the Inferna Heavy Industries facility at Zeta Hercules, and Keyhole Prime shipyards of Rundar. Development began in 2350, and in 52 the USS Springfield launched with the technology contemporary to its time. However, this was a period of much development in the Federation, and it was soon outclassed in the following decade. The Springfield class was created to be a light frigate with a focus on supporting the Federation. Patrol missions, cargo and personnel transport and light defensive duties were all under its purview, which might explain its short lifetime. Most of these roles are already occupied by other starships, and honestly, this might be an example of Starfleet actually putting something together to be a bit of everything and not quite achieving anything. It was a class of starship that newer member worlds were happy to construct, but why does that make it feel like Starfleet was just handing it down to smaller yards to free up its noteworthy dry docks? Because of this, it was often host to technology from differing worlds, and these worlds would staff the ships with monospecies crews. It did see missions along the Klingon, Cardassian and Breen borders between the 2360s and 70s. After the Battle of Wolf 359, when Starfleet started overhauling its fleet, several classes presented themselves as more capable than others. The Springfield class was not one of these ships, despite it being newer than the Excelsiors and Mirandas that also partook in that ill-fated battle. As tensions with the Dominion began to ramp up, the Springfield line was marked for decommissioning in the face of supporting stronger designs and freeing up resources, and by 2375 the line had been retired. The Springfield class is a sizable 325 metres long, which makes it about 242 wide and 70 metres tall. It had a crew of 430, spread over about 18 to 22 decks, not including the mission pod, but this is an estimate. In terms of warp speeds, it could achieve a theoretical maximum of 9.2, which places it slightly ahead of the Ambassador class, which is decent. The engines were rated to move at a higher mass than was required, making it a good cargo transport and inadvertent tug if needed. It was armed with 8 phaser arrays, but only 2 photon torpedo launchers, one forward and one rear facing, I think. Okay, this is the first time in one of these videos that I'm doing this, but design flaws. There are many that emerged in researching this thing, and I need to put them all in one place. The variety of mission pods contained a lot of variation, including supporting large cargo pods or sensor suites, but the ship's main shuttle bay was mounted on the rear of this pod, meaning that if it had no pods, then it had no shuttles. But why? Speculation here, but I think that as this line is one of the only ones to support such a mission pod, it might have contributed to being decommissioned earlier. The Nebula 2 has a unique attachment or two, but that was a far larger line with a dedicated role. The sheer support and infrastructure needed to utilise this class might just have been seen as wasteful. Next up, the underslung secondary hull was added because the ship did not have enough room for its engine room and other essential systems. That's fine. But they elected to place the pod between the nacelles and then suspend the engine room, O-berth style, from the pylons. Would it not make more sense to swap these locations? Finally, this thing could separate the saucer, but required a dry dock to reassemble. Fair enough. That is hardly unique, and many Starfleet ships can do this. The Galaxy was unique for being the first ship that could reattach without assistance. But why then? Why does the separation system jettison the nacelles and the engineering hulls separately, leaving the parts with the warp core adrift with no propulsion? The saucer having no warp is something we've seen before, and that eventually gets addressed. But at least in most cases, the engineering hull could still warp around a bit. Leave the nacelles attached to the core. The thing just blows itself into two equally useless chunks because it's all attached to the saucer, which flies off. Worse, there are no impulse engines on the drive section even. I guess in emergencies, when you needed to evacuate the saucer section, it kinda makes sense, but then the saucer can only fly at high impulse with no warp fields, so time dilation comes into play. I would suggest using this shuttle bay, but oopsie daisy, we left it behind. Why not just invest in a core ejection system instead? There is so much about this design that does not make sense. Now, of course, this is because in real life it is a kit bash. But I like to look at this from an in-universe standpoint and just yell at the Starfleet designers. Either way, this class was decommissioned in 2375, however there are still a couple out there that had begun long-term survey missions before this decommissioning date as of the 2380s. Essentially, however, this class, from its inception to its implementation and design, was quickly superseded by other vessels that could do its job better, and by the time of the Nebula class, even the mission pod idea was improved over the Springfield. I think I might have found a vessel I actually don't like. Although at least it looks pretty cool, I'll give it that. Thanks for watching this breakdown of a ship. I've been Rick, and I'll see you later for another video. Until then, goodbye.